for us, for all the Asians who celebrate Lunar New Year, they get 2 chances to start a new year,
Yeah.
which is the Western New Year.
Yeah.
If you flop that, it's fine. Lunar New Year is just approaching on the horizon, and it's another new year, new you. So as Lunar New Year is approaching, I'm curious, like, it's also famous to be the occasion where we are subjected to like toxic comments from our cousins, aunties, and uncles. I'm wondering if you have any takes on like how our listeners or like Asian communities can kind of stay sane, you know, protect their mental health while making their rounds, meeting uncles and aunties that they only get to meet once a year.
Yeah. I think personally, it's a harder question for me because I think I'm lucky enough to not have gone through that. I just happen to have nice and understanding family members who wouldn't ask me all those questions. But I was thinking, actually, let me ask you, like, what about these questions that trigger you?
I guess like some of the common questions that a lot of our like listeners or like even on social media, the Asian communities would point out would be around how like uncles and aunties could like make very straightforward comments
Yeah.
about your body. For example, like, oh, you got fat.
Oh, yes, I
It's
got that too.
hurtful to some people,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't really hurt me as much. It would just be like, oh, great. It means I ate well. Thank you. You know, but sometimes it could be very hurtful for other people. Or for example, like, sometimes some of the very direct comments are, oh, why aren't you married? Like, does no one want to be with you? Something like that,
Because I
right?
asked that question because I was thinking, if, for example, you said people ask, oh, that you got fat, but you don't really mind, you just say, oh, I ate well. I wonder why then certain questions would hurt someone but not the other. So I was thinking, what's actually the reason behind that question that trigger you? Because if you're confident, if you feel like it's not a problem, then it would just slip my mind. It wouldn't really trigger me. So I'm just curious, like, what about this question that actually trigger you, and why does it trigger you and not the other person? And if you say, okay, it trigger you, then it must mean that some element about this question actually reminds something about you, maybe. That's why
Right.
I'm just making assumption here.
Which is what you mentioned earlier about like low self-esteem. Like a lot of it is like internalized since childhood. You know, it could also speak to some of the common Asian toxic traits. For example, like parents or uncles and aunties would like to compare the children, right? It's like, oh, look at your cousin A. You know, he got straight A's, went to this university, is working as a doctor. What about you, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then if that person also feel confident about themselves, they won't care. I don't care what comments you make on me. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm happy with what I've achieved. So I think the key is to actually, think deeper than that and think, oh, why does that certain question really trigger me? Does it mean that I also maybe think in that way to an extent? That's why it's more hurtful because for example, I'm very insecure about my body, and if someone make comment on it, of course I will be hurt. But then I'm very proud of my profession. So if someone make comments about my profession, it's like, I don't care what you say.
Yeah, that's
So I think
true.
it's actually a message to tell yourself, and then we can think about, okay, if that's actually something that trigger me, do you want to work on it? But then I feel like this is the more like a clinical way to deal with it. But I think the short way to deal with it, I personally was thinking maybe ask them a question back. I feel like the best way
Why
to
did
do
you
it.
get fat,
No,
auntie?
I was like, okay, but what makes you say that? Just
Right.
throw that. Oh, really? What makes you say that? Or
And then
why
that's when
did-
they'll be like,
yeah. Or like, oh, why did you get married? Why are you not married yet? Okay. Oh, so you think I should be married now? Why do you think so? And then they'd be like, oh, I'm not sure. So yeah, I feel like it's always easy to, just throw a question back to them and see what they say.
I know. It's like, oh, why are you not married? It's like, oh, why should I be?
Yeah,
It's like, why not?
exactly. Yeah, they just carry on.
Yeah. And I mean, I do think on one hand, like you mentioned, from the clinical point of view, on an individual level, there are ways we can work on becoming a little bit more like confident. There are techniques that we can apply where we can be a little bit more resilient in the face of these like hurtful comments. But I do think like collectively as like, Asian communities, there is also that like emphasis that we need to start maybe going beyond like some of the toxic traits that we are so used to. Like when you show that you're hurt by these comments, like the aunties and uncles or grandmas, they were just like, we have always made fun of young people that way. We've always done it that way. But sometimes the exact thinking of like, we have always done it that way could be quite toxic. And we need to collectively understand that like we can go beyond that. We can improve beyond what we have always done.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's quite hard though to try to change the family's narrative, especially if they're grandma's level, they're grandmas. You can't argue with grandmas. But I feel like it's more about the message you get out of it. Because for example, if someone said, a grandma said, oh, you gain weight. And if I interpret it as, oh, she thinks I'm fat, I'm ugly, then it's negative, of course, I feel hurt. But then if I reframe it and think, well, grandma loves me every time she feeds me food. So maybe that's a way for her to show that, oh, she cares about me, oh, you gain weight, but it's just a comment, but she actually loves me. Maybe that way would make me feel slightly better.
That's true. I guess another way for like I personally would cope is just like I only see these people, like once a year or like once every 5 years. So whatever they say, it doesn't really apply to my life because they know nothing about me. So just like, why should I even, give energy and time to worry about what they're going to say about me, right?
Yeah.
So there are so many ways, but I mean, Lunar New Year could be a whole different episode.
Yeah, well, you get pocket money, so
Yes, that's true.
maybe it's worth it.
You can tell me I got fat all you want, but just give me my
Just give me
lycée.
money. Yeah.